A 4-year-old orphan boy is kicked out of his home at night and forced to sleep on the sidewalk. But a millionaire was driving by, and what she did shocked everyone. Rate my story from 0 to 10. Your opinion is very important. And subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. The rain poured down like a relentless curtain on the streets of the big city, turning the sidewalks into dark mirrors that reflected the neon lights of the businesses. The 4-year-old orphan boy, looking even more frail than a 2-year-old due to severe malnutrition, trembled violently when the door of the house opened with brutal force. The middle-aged man who had mistreated him for months held an old and torn suitcase. "I don't want you here anymore," the cruel man shouted, throwing the suitcase into the rain. "You're nothing but trouble, and you eat our food." "Get out of my sight!" The little one couldn't fully understand the words, but the tone of rejection was all too clear. His clothes were soaked in seconds, sticking to his thin body like a second icy skin. The hurried passers-by looked away, pretending not to see the child huddled in the gutter, sheltering under a broken awning. Across town, the 30-year-old millionaire was driving her imported car through the deserted avenues. Her stunning beauty contrasted with the cold and calculating expression she maintained during business meetings. She had just come from a board meeting that would completely change the course of her financial empire. Her investments in the stock market had yielded extraordinary profits, solidifying her position among the most influential entrepreneurs in the region. The rain beat against the windshield with increasing intensity when she decided to take an alternate route back to her mansion in Beverly Hills. The back streets were more deserted, but offered a moment's peace after hours of discussions about dividends and financial investments. Her mind was still processing the multi-million-dollar figures she had moved that afternoon. It was then that her vehicle's headlights illuminated a small figure huddled by the curb. The woman instinctively slammed on the brakes, observing through the fogged glass. It was a child, alone in the torrential rain. Something inside her, a feeling forgotten years ago, made her park the car and get out into the storm. "What are you doing here, kiddo?" she asked, crouching next to the boy who was trembling uncontrollably. The boy raised his wet face, revealing large, frightened eyes. He couldn't speak properly due to the shock and cold, just pointed vaguely in the direction of the house from which he had been expelled. That's when the woman noticed something that made her eyes widen in surprise. On the child's right arm was a peculiar scar, shaped like an irregular crescent moon. She pulled up the sleeve of her expensive blouse, revealing an identical mark in the same place. Her heart raced inexplicably. "How did you get that mark?" she whispered, more to herself than to the boy. Without hesitating any longer, she picked up the boy and took him inside the warm car. The boy didn't resist, just snuggled against the leather seat, too exhausted to question what was happening. During the drive to the mansion, the woman constantly watched the child's face in the rearview mirror, trying to understand the strange connection she felt. Her property was located in the elegant outskirts of Beverly Hills, protected by high walls and manicured gardens. The imposing house had more than 20 rooms, all decorated with expensive furniture and valuable works of art. The boy had never seen such opulence, his eyes widening as he stepped into the entrance hall with crystal chandeliers. After a hot bath and dry clothes, the boy began to show signs of his exceptional intelligence. While the woman prepared something for him to eat, the boy assembled a complex 1,000-piece puzzle in less than an hour. When she returned to the room, she found the complete image of a medieval castle perfectly assembled on the coffee table. "How did you do that so fast?" she asked, impressed. The boy just shrugged, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. In the following days, he would demonstrate even more impressive skills, solving mathematical problems that challenged even educated adults. 2 weeks later, when the woman tried to begin the temporary guardianship process, she discovered the first major obstacle: The clerk at the county courthouse examined the documents that the previous adoptive family had provided and shook his head negatively. "These papers are blatant forgeries," he explained seriously. "This boy officially does not exist in government records. There is no birth certificate, no medical history, nothing." The revelation disturbed her. How could a child simply not exist in the system? What kind of people were those who had mistreated him? The questions multiplied in her mind as she watched the boy playing silently in the mansion's garden. During the following nights, she noticed that the boy had terrible nightmares. He would wake up screaming incomprehensible words, sweating cold and trembling. He flatly refused to talk about his past or the family that had rejected him. Any attempt to talk about the subject made him withdraw even further. It was on one of those nights of terror that she heard something that would change everything. The boy, lost in a particularly intense nightmare, clearly murmured a woman's name. "Marina, Marina, please don't leave me." His voice was filled with a deep pain that broke the millionaire's heart. Who was Marina, and why did her name cause the boy so much suffering? The woman realized that she needed to discover the truth about the child's past, not only to resolve the legal issues, but to help him overcome the traumas that clearly tormented him. The next day, she hired the best private investigator in the city, an experienced man specializing in complex cases involving missing children. What she didn't know was that this decision would trigger a series of discoveries that would completely shake her beliefs about her own life. The private investigator arrived at the mansion 3 days later, carrying a bulky folder and a somber expression that immediately made the millionaire apprehensive. He was a 60-year-old man with grey hair and piercing eyes that seemed to have seen many secrets throughout his career. He sat down in the main room while the boy played in the garden, oblivious to the conversation that would shape his destiny. "What did you find out about Marina?" the woman asked, serving coffee in fine china cups. "It wasn't easy, but I managed to track down that name. Marina was an employee of an orphanage that operated 15 years ago in the suburbs of Los Angeles." The investigator began, opening his folder. "The problem is that the place was abruptly closed by the authorities for serious irregularities." The millionaire felt a chill in her stomach. What kind of irregularities? Large-scale illegal adoptions. The director, a man named August Mendez, sold children to families who paid exorbitant amounts. Some of these children were used as free labor. Others simply disappeared from the records, he explained, showing old photographs of the establishment. What she saw next left her speechless. Among the photos was an image of herself at age 4, along with other children in front of the same orphanage. Her memory, hitherto fragmented about her childhood, began to reorganize itself like pieces of a macabre puzzle. "You were there too," confirmed the investigator. "Your adoptive parents, those you always considered loving, paid a considerable fortune to get a child who could legally inherit their businesses. They didn't just want a daughter, they wanted an heiress who would give legitimacy to their questionable ventures." The revelation hit her like a punch in the stomach. All those years of affection, all the happy memories of a golden childhood, had been built on a lie. Her parents didn't genuinely love her. She had been bought as an investment for the future. "What about the boy? What is his connection to all this?" she asked with a trembling voice. "That's the most disturbing part," said the investigator, turning a page of the report. "The boy is Marina's grandson. She was one of the most dedicated employees of the orphanage, but when she discovered August Mendez's scheme, she tried to report him to the authorities. She was fired immediately and threatened with death if she said anything." The story became more complex with each word. Marina became pregnant years later, but died in childbirth due to lack of adequate medical care. Her daughter grew up on the streets, eventually having her own son, the boy who now lived in the mansion, before also passing away due to poor living conditions. The family that mistreated him had bought him illegally from traffickers who exploited orphan children. They knew that the boy had no documents and took advantage of this to exploit him without fear of legal consequences, continued the investigator. The millionaire stood up abruptly, walking to the window where she could see the boy building sandcastles in the garden. His innocence contrasted brutally with the sordid reality she had just discovered. How could she explain to a child that his entire existence had been marked by illegal financial transactions? "There's more," said the investigator, hesitating. "August Mendez is still alive. He lives comfortably in a house in upstate New York, financed by the money he made selling children over the years. He keeps detailed records of all transactions in a safe." Fury took over her instantly. That man had destroyed hundreds of lives, including her own, and lived peacefully with the profits of his crimes. Her millionaire fortune, built with investments in stocks and high-yield funds, could be used to bring justice. "I want to confront him," she said with determination. "I want to look into the eyes of the man who turned children into commodities. I don't advise that. Men like him are dangerous, even in old age. Besides, you have responsibilities now," warned the investigator, gesturing towards the garden. But the obsession had already set in. During the following weeks, the woman spent hours researching August Mendez, studying his movements, planning a confrontation. She hired more investigators, lawyers specializing in crimes against minors, spent thousands of dollars in legal resources to build a case against him. The problem was that her fixation on justice began to consume all her time and attention. The boy, who had begun to flourish in his safe environment, quickly noticed the change in her behavior. Meals together decreased, conversations became scarce, and she spent more time locked in the office planning her revenge than taking care of the child she had promised to protect. The boy, who had already been abandoned once, began to interpret this change as another rejection. He stopped eating properly, developed severe anxiety attacks, and returned to having constant nightmares. Whenever she left home to meet lawyers or investigators, he would hide under the bed, trembling and crying, fearing that she would never return. "Why don't you like me anymore?" he asked one night, with tears streaming down his small face. The question hit her like a thunderbolt. She realized that she was repeating the pattern of abandonment that had marked the child's life since birth. While seeking justice for the past, she was neglecting the present and the future of the boy who depended completely on her. It was then that she made a drastic decision. She scheduled a final meeting with August Mendez, determined to confront him personally and end that obsession once and for all. What she didn't know was that this encounter would reveal even more disturbing secrets about her origins. On the morning of the meeting, the boy clung to her legs, begging her not to leave. "Are you coming back? Promise you'll come back," he asked with despair in his voice. "I promise," she replied, kissing his forehead. "This is the last time I need to leave to resolve these old things. After that, it will be just you and me, forever." What she couldn't imagine was that the revelations that awaited her would completely change her understanding of who she really was and what her true connection was with the orphan boy she had chosen to love as her son. August Mendez's house was located in a remote area outside of Los Angeles, surrounded by abandoned plantations and dusty dirt roads. The millionaire drove for 2 hours to reach the location, her mind seething with all the accusations she intended to make to the man who had commercialized her childhood. The old mansion seemed well maintained, evidence that illegal profits had provided a comfortable retirement to the former director of the orphanage. When she rang the bell, a 60-year-old man answered the door. August had completely white hair, thick glasses, and a serene expression that contrasted with the monstrosity of his past crimes. He recognized her immediately, a disturbing smile forming on his thin lips. "Little Clarice," he said, using a name she hadn't heard in decades, "you've grown into a beautiful woman, exactly as I imagined you would. Come in, I'm sure we have a lot to talk about." The interior of the house was filled with expensive furniture and valuable works of art, each piece bought with the suffering of helpless children. August served tea in an imported china set, behaving as if it were a common social visit. "I imagine you've discovered some uncomfortable truths about your origin," he began, sitting in a leather armchair. "Your adoptive parents paid a considerable sum for you. They specifically wanted an intelligent and beautiful girl, someone who could become the respectable face of their business when she grew up. You destroyed the lives of hundreds of children," she accused, her voice trembling with contained rage. "How can you live with yourself knowing the evil you caused?" August laughed softly, as if she had told a tasteless joke. "My dear, I offered opportunities. All those children would have died on the streets or in overcrowded institutions. I connected them with families who had the resources to raise them." "Resources to exploit them, you mean?" she retorted. "And the boy I'm taking care of, was he also a victim of your scheme?" August's expression changed subtly, a shadow passing over his eyes. "Ah, yes, Marina's little grandson. That woman was always problematic, trying to ruin my business with her exaggerated conscience. A pity she didn't live to see what happened to her family. He has no documentation, thanks to your rotten system," she continued, trying to control her growing fury. "Documents can be created, my dear. I have contacts who still do that kind of work, obviously for a suitable fee," he offered casually. "But before we discuss business, there's something you need to know about your true identity." August got up and walked to an antique cabinet, taking out a folder yellowed with age. Inside were old photographs and handwritten documents that appeared to be detailed personal records of his criminal transactions. "You weren't the only child sold on that specific day," he revealed, showing a photo where she appeared alongside another boy of the same age. "You arrived at the orphanage together, brought by the same person, twins separated at birth by circumstances that were never fully clarified." Her world collapsed at that moment. The photograph clearly showed two identical babies, her and a boy, who possessed the same crescent moon-shaped scar on his right arm. The mark she had always believed to be unique, the result of some forgotten accident, was actually shared with her twin brother. "Where is he?" she asked, her voice choked with emotion. "He was sold to a different family on the same day. Cruel people who wanted him only for housework. Unfortunately, I can't say what happened to him after he left my care," August lied, knowing exactly the tragic fate that had awaited her brother. The revelation left her completely disoriented. Throughout her life she had felt an inexplicable emptiness, as if an essential part of herself was lost. Now she understood that this feeling had a real origin. She had been literally separated from her other half. "The boy you're taking care of," August continued in a calculating tone, "has no blood connection with you. He's just another victim of the system, son of victims who became victims, an endless chain of suffering." These words were like daggers in her heart. For weeks, she had felt an inexplicable connection with the child, attributing it to the shared scar and the dramatic circumstances of their meeting. Discovering that it was all a coincidence left her questioning her own maternal feelings. "But I can offer a solution to all your problems," August said, leaning forward with commercial interest. "I have records of all the families who bought children over the years. I can help you find your brother, create legitimate documents for the boy, resolve all these bureaucratic issues. All for a fair price, considering your privileged financial situation." The proposal was tempting, but something in the way he spoke made her deeply suspicious. August was not moved by redemption or remorse. He still saw those human tragedies as profit opportunities. He was trying to turn her into another client of his illegal services. "How much?" she asked, feigning interest. "Considering the complexity of the case and my current operating costs, 200,000 in bitcoins would be a reasonable amount. Half now, half when I deliver all the information and documents," he proposed, with the naturalness of someone selling a used car. Her response was unexpected. Instead of accepting or denying, she stood up abruptly and began photographing all the documents in the folder with her cell phone, ignoring August's furious protests. "What do you think you're doing?" he shouted, trying to grab her phone. "Documenting your confessions and evidence to hand over to the authorities," she replied coldly. "Your comfortable retirement is coming to an end." August completely changed his posture, revealing the true violent nature that he had hidden behind the cordial facade. He grabbed her wrist tightly, his eyes gleaming with a dangerous anger. "You don't understand the situation you've gotten yourself into, little girl. I still have powerful contacts who owe me favors. If you try to harm me, I guarantee that both you and that boy will disappear without a trace," he threatened in a low voice filled with malice. It was at that moment that she realized she had made a terrible mistake. She had left the boy alone in the mansion to confront a dangerous criminal, putting both of them at unnecessary risk. Her obsession with answers had compromised the safety of the only person who really mattered in her current life. She managed to break free and ran to the car, while August shouted threats behind her. Throughout the journey back, she called the mansion repeatedly, but no one answered the phone. Panic took hold of her as she imagined what could have happened to the boy in her absence. The millionaire's heart was pounding when she arrived at the mansion and found all the lights turned off. She ran through the house calling for the boy, but only the echo of her own voice answered through the empty corridors. In his room, she found the bed unmade and some toys scattered on the floor, signs that he had left in a hurry or been taken against his will. Her hands trembled as she called the police, reporting the disappearance and August's threats. But when the officers arrived to investigate, they found something completely unexpected. The boy was hidden in the basement of the mansion, wrapped in old blankets, sleeping soundly. "Kiddo, what are you doing down here?" she asked, relieved, hugging him tightly. "I was scared," he mumbled sleepily. "I heard strange noises outside and hid like Marina taught me. She always said that when I was scared, I should hide in dark places until the danger passed." The spontaneous mention of Marina made her heart race. It was the first time the boy had spoken openly about someone from his past. When questioned gently, he began to reveal fragmented memories that had remained blocked by trauma. "Marina took care of me when I was very little," he said in a child's voice. "She had white hair and soft hands. She always told me stories about a place where children were happy and had real families." In the following days, pieces of the real story began to fit together through the boy's childhood memories. Marina was not just an employee of the orphanage. She had raised the boy since he was a baby after her daughter died in childbirth. When she discovered August's scheme, she tried to protect the child by hiding him in her own home. "She was my grandma," he said simply, as if it were obvious. "But the bad men came and took her away. They said I couldn't stay alone and gave me to that bad family." The revelation completely changed the millionaire's perspective on the whole situation. The boy was not just another random victim of the system. He was the last link to the only person who had tried to confront August and protect the children in his care. Marina had been a silent heroine, and her premature death had left her grandson vulnerable to predators. While processing this information, she received an unexpected call. It was a lawyer representing a man who claimed to be her twin brother. Apparently, her actions against August had reverberated through the criminal underworld, and someone who had been looking for her for years had finally managed to locate her. The meeting was set in a discreet cafe in downtown Los Angeles. When she arrived, she instantly recognized the man sitting at a table in the corner. It was like looking at a male version of herself, including the identical scar on his right arm. But his simple clothes and tired appearance contrasted drastically with her natural elegance. "Clarice," he said with a choked voice, "I've spent my whole life looking for you." His real name was Robert, and his story was the exact opposite of hers. He had been sold to a family who exploited him as labor since childhood, never receiving formal education or genuine affection. He worked in inhuman conditions until he managed to escape at 18, living on the streets and doing odd jobs to survive. "I always knew there was someone just like me somewhere," he said, showing the scar. "This mark appeared when we were babies, during an accident at the orphanage. August said you had died, but I never completely believed it." Guilt crushed the millionaire's heart. While she had grown up in luxury, receiving the best education and building a financial empire, her twin brother had suffered decades of exploitation and misery. The cruel irony was that her success had been financed by the same source that caused his suffering. "I can help you now," she offered desperately. "I have enough resources to—" "I don't want your charity," he interrupted with dignity. "I came here because I found out something about August that you need to know. He wasn't lying about having dangerous contacts. There are powerful people who still protect his business, and you two are in real danger." Robert explained that several politicians, businessmen, and authorities had been clients of August's scheme over the years. Many of them now held important positions and would do anything to keep their secrets buried. The investigation she had initiated was stirring up a hornet's nest much bigger than she imagined. "We need to leave the city," he said urgently. "I know people who can help us disappear until it's safe to return." But when they returned to the mansion to pick up the boy, they found the property surrounded by official cars. They weren't criminals sent by August, but federal agents who had been called in after her complaints. The private investigator she had hired had taken the evidence to the competent authorities, initiating a national operation against the child trafficking network. The prosecutor responsible for the case explained that the photographs and documents she had collected were crucial evidence to dismantle the entire criminal organization. August was being arrested at that moment, along with dozens of others involved in the scheme. "You don't need to hide anymore," the prosecutor assured. "With this evidence, we can offer full protection and prosecute everyone responsible." But the biggest surprise was yet to come. During the investigation of August's records, the authorities discovered that Marina had left a sealed letter with specific instructions on what to do if something happened to her. In the letter, she specifically named the millionaire as the person who should take care of her grandson, based on research she had done on her development and character. "She researched all the children who passed through the orphanage," explained the investigator. "Marina knew exactly who you had become and believed you would be the perfect mother for the boy. It wasn't a coincidence that you met on that rainy night." The final revelation was that Marina had spent years planning this meeting. She had discovered the address of the cruel family that mistreated the boy, and in her last heroic action before dying, had anonymously reported them to social services. She knew they would expel the child and had strategically arranged for it to happen on the route that the millionaire usually took after business meetings. "She orchestrated everything to save her grandson," concluded the investigator. "Even the details of timing were calculated to maximize the chances of you meeting." With all the revelations finally clarified, the millionaire realized that she had found much more than she expected. She recovered her lost twin brother, discovered that the boy had been destined for her by a loving grandmother, and helped destroy the criminal network that had caused so much suffering. Robert decided to stay close, agreeing to work at her companies and slowly building a stable life. The boy, now with complete legal documentation, flourished in an environment where he finally felt truly loved and protected. His exceptional talents developed rapidly, but always balanced with plenty of care and emotional attention. A year later, they formed an unconventional but deeply united family. The millionaire had redirected a large part of her fortune to create a fund that helped other children who were victims of trafficking, ensuring that Marina's memory lived on through concrete actions of child protection. The pain of the past had transformed into purpose, and love had finally triumphed over all the adversities that tried to separate them.